I touched on this before, how challenging in a way it can be to choose your path, spiritual enlightenment, development of magical or supernormal powers, especially if you have a tendency to want something to be all true or not true at all. So when I'm reading a book on witchcraft and the focus is on pagan witchcraft, as Marion Green's A Witch Alone book is, it's sold millions of copies, written back in, when was it written? 1991 when it was first published. I'm looking at a 2002 edition from HarperCollins. And in this book, it begins with some statements that I find rather interesting. And from the standpoint of Transurfing's number one rule, which is allow yourself to be yourself and allow different people to be different. I find this paragraph interesting. She says, "It is often thought that witchcraft involves the worship of a character which the Christians call Satan, but this is not true. The Satanists are not pagan witches, but derive from Christianity, perverting the usual understanding of good and evil of that religion. Witches, on the whole, do not have any kind of evil deity. They worship Mother Nature, the great goddess who also rules over the triple phases of the moon and all the waters, be they springs, rivers, or oceans. Her consort, divine sun and champion, is lord of wild and tame creatures. He is the hunter, the corn god, the dying and reincarnating sun god, bearing the antlers of the stag or the sun's rays upon his brow. Each of these deities rules over patterns of change, the natural rebirth of the earth's green bounty in spring, its summer burgeoning, autumnal decay, and winter rest," and so on. I don't relate to that. I wish she'd used another word besides perverting when she was talking about how Satanists are not pagan witches but derive from Christianity, perverting the usual understanding of good and evil of that religion. Couldn't she just have easily have said that they were redefining the usual understanding of good and evil of that religion instead of using the word perverting, which sounds so negative? And then she goes on to say that witches do not have any kind of evil deity, witches on the whole. So she's implying that most witches believe in the Corn King. And, you know, they're basically pagan. And they run around with antlers on their heads. Or the sun's rays upon his brow. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that notion. I'm just not really, that's not how I see myself as a witch. I guess it sounds a lot to me like Gardnerian witchcraft and European witchcraft, which sort of became more like that at that time than perhaps it might have been before. But, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all those Renaissance fairs throughout the ages were exactly like that, and that's what the pagans did, in which case, fine, but not all witches are pagans. That I know for sure. So when I'm researching witchcraft strategies, magic strategies to learn about, to maybe put into practice, to do, I have a tendency to put back any book that has a focus on something like paganism, which I'm not really interested in that. There are parts of it, obviously, that I am interested in it, and I want to know about herbs and connecting with Mother Earth, etc., but it just feels constraining, like there's like this dogma of practices and rituals, and you need an athame, and you need a this and a that, and there's just this sort of ceremonialism about it that, the way you open quarters and draw down the moon, and I don't feel comfortable doing that, because it feels like if you do it, then you can't do anything else. Or at least that's the feeling I get from it. So I tend to be less I can't think of the right word. I don't tend to call upon gods and spirits or other entities to help me, for the most part, in my magic, other than sort of connecting to the moon, the goddess. I guess I don't really think of her as the goddess. I just connect to the moon and animals and parts of nature. I just feel a connection to them, and it brings out my witchy side. But I don't ever think in terms of the triple goddess, or some great hunter, the Corn King thing. The sun gods. I'm more probably likely to want to worship, if I was going to pick a deity, some Greek goddess, or perhaps an American Indian deity, or something more polytheistic. I think that's the right word. I'm more interested in being free to call upon and praise, or whatever it is that we need to do to get the support from these entities in my life. If I know more about them, and I am hesitant to get involved with anything where there might be a demon knocking on my door. I don't think I could handle that. I'm not really sure why anybody would want to try to handle them. But then again, I'm not completely closed-minded to the idea, because there's certain YouTube witches that I absolutely love in many ways, even if they're into that shit. And I don't want to be closed-minded to it because of some undeveloped, but clearly still, intrinsically buried deep in the soul Christianity prejudices. The whole thing they talked about before about, Satan, and how witchcraft is looked down upon by many people on the Christian side of the religious specter, and being a bit of a pussy, I guess I'm not willing to throw in my entire mental direction towards anything that might possibly turn out to be less helpful than it's, if becoming a witch that deals with spirits summons a negative entity into my life and causes trouble, then, was it worth it? Maybe not, and I'm not sure I want to go there. So as I pick up new books to read, or I buy the audiobooks, or I watch a YouTube video, or I read an article, or I somehow, some way gain information and knowledge about magic and witchcraft from all walks of life and all cultures at all points in history, it just makes me more confused, to be honest, at some level. I guess the expression is the more you know you don't know. But when you're starting at my level of intelligence, it's bigger than that, because I'm not really grasping half the stuff I'm learning at many levels. So that's hard. But then again, there are parts of it that are sinking in and making changes for me and giving me signs of actual magic working. And so I have, picked up a few things that I've incorporated into my magical practice and my personal definition of the witch I am right now. And I'm not sure what I wanted to say about that. I guess I'm just being really honest that this is not, for me at least, a journey with clear markers. I'm always sort of teetering on the edge of comprehension or acceptance or connection or what I'm seeking. Sometimes it's just like a word on the tip of your tongue that you just can't think of. So it's taking me a while, many decades, to drip by drip, idea by idea, bursts of effort followed by no effort at all. That type of practice, reading a bit of this, reading a bit of that, to get where I'm at right now, which is farther and definitely more consistent. And I've been consistently not forgetting that I'm a witch, not forgetting about magic for, I'd say, a good year now. And yet I'm still not sure about so many aspects. I haven't picked my god or my goddess or my deity or my spirit animal or whatever the fuck, I don't really know that I'm going to ever do that. I don't know. I've started doing some ceremonial techniques, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, more or less on a daily basis. And it's been not easy for me to do it because I don't really have much of a recollection of the whole Archangel's story. And I'm, it's on my to-do list to get to really learn that and understand it. I just keep getting distracted by other more things that are more interesting to me. So the point anyhow is that I don't think of deities very often. I don't think of the goddess. I don't think of the god. I don't think of Zeus or Diana or any of the deities or the demons or the dark angels. Or I don't really know, to be honest, that whole world very well, and you know, they're all, everybody's definition is a little different. I mean, you know, the groups, right? Each practice that becomes sort of written down and organized will take maybe sometimes the same deities, and it's a group thing, but it's also a personal thing, and I know it doesn't really matter, but I find it hard to just arbitrarily pick out of the hat, you know, deity of the week and then start calling on it to help me, and it feels somehow like I don't have the right to do it until I've studied and become familiar with the whole background, the whole history. I mean, what's so weird for me is that I don't consider myself very intelligent, and yet I have this fascination of understanding things. So what does that mean? I want to understand? And why would I want to understand if there wasn't some intelligence there? It's bizarre. It's weird how I think about myself. It's fucked up mostly, but that's what it is. I just have like this serious, lifelong love affair with insecurity in that regard, and almost an eagerness to let people know just how much less I am than they are. It's fucked up. And yet at the same time, I'm doing it in a superior kind of way, so it's completely bizarre. I mean, I am both less than you and I am better than you. You know, it's just fucked up. There's just this the pendulum rule has been running my life forever, and I'm sick of it. Just sick of it. But not in a way that I'm like stressed out about it, because I drop importance these days. I don't let things stress me out. Thank you, reality transurfing. Which is why I plan to get to the witchy work, the witchy study, the witchy practice, without any sort of demand or pace or guilt or criticism. I'm just going to do it as I do it, and take the path in the way that it's happening for me. So, having said that, I am going to try and read all of Marianne Green's book, because I'm sure there's a wealth of practical witchcraft knowledge that goes beyond how they call quarters, or how, what tools to use, or what deities to call upon. That's something else in there that I can glean and use in my practice. And one of the reasons I began to believe that I might get an insight out of this particular book was this comment from the very first page, where she was talking about how human beings have had a longing for a long time deep within themselves, where there is a form of religious expression which appeals to the heart and is without dogma, and it brings the seeker, the human being who's craving this, who's longing for this, closer to deities, from which spiritual comfort, healing, and guidance may be received at first hand. And I asked myself, have I ever really thought of it in that way, where I needed a deity to provide comfort? Or did I just want comfort? And do I have this longing? And maybe that's what magic is. Maybe the deities that I'm seeking access to is just that connection between me and every other creature on this planet, however it is done through spirits or deities or thought energy forms in a field of space variations and boom, that stuff, right? Quantum physics, whatever it is, the spark of God. It's too mind-boggling for me. And still I want to have some access to it. I want to raise my vibration. I want to feel connected. I want to live my life without limitation. So I'm going to try. I hate that word, try. I am attempting. I must intend. I intend to learn without becoming a patsy, without becoming a convert, without becoming a stooge for anyone else's ideas. I'm going to learn and process and make my own decisions. I'm going to study witchcraft and magic and take whatever I read with a grain of salt and not overanalyze, and yet at the same time fully analyze what I study and what I learn. And then I will take my steps to try things out for myself. And as I do, I will discover what works and what doesn't work. And I may become a book witch. Who knows? Actually, that sounds good to me. It would make me feel smart. So, call me a book witch. Although I think as book witches go, I'd probably, the real intellectuals will not click subscribe. But other people who are maybe more like me, and just want to look at things from a different point of view and ask those nagging questions that are at the back of your mind but you're afraid to ask, because that's my specialty. Maybe you'll hear something that I say, or I'll hear something that you say, and we'll both grow in our own way and develop our skills, magical, spiritual, self-development abilities, whatever it is you're trying to do. Oh yes, the Magick Cauldron of Transformation. We'll mix our own potion, put ourselves in it, and come out the other side just a little bit changed. And I intend that anybody who watches my channel or watches my videos, that any change that is made as a result of this channel is for the better of that person's life. So there, I've said it. I will it. So mote it be. So anyhow, that's sort of a book review. Not really, no, it's not a book review. That's me talking to you about starting some work. And one of the things that she recommends, so again, if I get past the corn God prejudice that I obviously have, and look at the other messages that are being taught, I'm sure I can learn a lot and incorporate it into my own magical traditions, whatever they turn out to become. But I have to say I am fascinated completely by all forms of magic that have happened in our planet. So it's difficult for me to not want to at least study how it's done in different traditions. But I also know that I can become scattered very easily, and that this is a technique for putting off actually fully engaging myself in a practice that takes up enough time that it has become my practice, and I'm growing in my development of my magical skills and abilities. So that's an issue that I'll have to address, but I think if I only spent 30 minutes a day reading from one of these witchy texts that I have, and I would develop more information, and I'm sure it would be good for me. I just have to decide which texts I want to read, and that's a challenge. I think I have to, it's presumed that for me that reading is more important than watching a video, because that's a rabbit hole of sorts, and I don't think it counts for my 30 days of studying magic to watch another YouTube witch for 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to read books, published books on magic and witchcraft for my 30 minutes a day of study. And I may or may not finish a complete book before I move on to the next. We'll see. But right now I'm on A Witch Alone, and I'm trying to talk myself into continuing to read it because, like I said, whenever it gets Gardnerian, Wicca, pagan-y, I just feel set aside, and I don't know. It's not who I am or who I think I'll ever want to be. So the isms about, you know, how most witches do this or that, they get to me, and I have to resist the knee-jerk reaction to just put the book down and pick something else up that's more simpatico. So we'll see how this goes. And if I try anything from it, as far as a spell or, and you know, maybe I will just do it exactly as they say and get all the things and worship the corn god by the time I finish reading the book. Because if I don't try it the way they teach it, then, you know, what right do I have to knock it? So I'm trying to open my mind to the process as a student, as a scholar. But again, that's part of me just is like reluctant to go anywhere I don't really feel a pull. So we'll see if I get very far into this book. Thanks for listening.